and you have no idea what you are doing or what difference that is going to make. You need evidence-based decisions, or this is misappropriation of public funds.
And as I'd finished my speech, one of them very loudly informed me, "You're speaking out your backside."
Because I don't believe we've got an emergency. I don't believe we want one either.
Have we scrutinised the climate emergency? Well, we haven't. I'm going to make you an offer. If I'm re-elected in May, we will scrutinise it in this forum.
So Councillor Laws did indeed get re-elected, and he kept his promise and organised a scrutiny panel on the council's climate emergency. There are 8 speaking slots available as part of Have Your Say. Councillor Laws recommended that we bring 4 experts in so that we had ample airtime. So if you had to bring in 4 experts to argue against climate alarmism, who would you choose? Well, my dream team would be Ralph Ellis, Paul Burgess, Greg Wrightstone and Dr. William Happer. And if you don't ask, you don't get. So I asked them. Remarkably, they all said yes. But Colchester Council said no, because they changed their rules in May to not allow any Have Your Say submissions via Zoom. So I then asked, could they come in as experts? But then they have to get everybody's agreement, and they ran out of time, and guess who ended up going in to speak yet again? Yes, Muggins. So here's how it went.
Good evening. To properly scrutinise the Council's climate emergency, you must evidence what the reduction in global temperatures will be as a result of spending millions of taxpayers' money to reach your net zero goals. You must also define the exact parameters of the climate emergency, or how will anyone know when it's over? Considering neither the IPCC nor the UK government has formally declared a climate emergency, why have you? Who here is qualified to make that judgment? The IPCC Policymakers Report is listed in the Council's references. It is written by politicians who vote on each sentence, which makes it very different from the full report that's written by scientists. Paul Burgess shows this in a video he created for you with the latest AR6 report, which shows there isn't a signature of anthropogenic emissions in extreme weather events. So where is the claimed emergency? Your update report states the Council voted unanimously to declare a climate emergency in 2019, but what about now, with only 20 of those councillors remaining? Those that voted were not given any evidence, they were left to do their own research. How many did? Or like most people, did they rely on the misleading mainstream media? Do any of you know CO2's ability to cause warming is inversely logarithmic, or what an emission height is, or how much of the infrared spectrum can be absorbed and emitted by CO2 compared to water vapour? Because if you don't understand these basics, how can you possibly make informed decisions? It's a shame the highly qualified experts we had lined up to talk to you tonight weren't allowed. Rather ironic, Council insists CO2 experts travel long distances instead of using Zoom. The offer is still there for you to speak directly with experts who've worked for the IPCC and written peer-reviewed climate papers, because you do need expert advice that hasn't been funded by those who profit from the $4 billion a day net zero industry, or unelected and unaccountable organisations like the UN with agendas that don't serve us. We do need to make decisions that protects the planet and not create worse pollution and destruction, mining rare earth minerals for EVs and renewables, creating millions of tonnes of waste that is too expensive or hard to recycle. The government's NESO report shows net zero will cost every household in the UK thousands per annum in increased bills. Whilst your climate emergency may have been in the best of intentions, the road to hell is paved with those. So you really do need to scrutinise this properly, or we will all be paying a very high price. We'll lose our valuable farmland, our beautiful countryside, our self-sufficiency and our freedom, all because of listening to fear-mongering instead of facts.
I have noted what you've said. I'm sure we're going to tackle some of this during the course of this evening at the latter part. And I just want to extend the hand of friendship to you in saying thank you for coming here, because it is your attendance in this building that's led to me buying a diesel car and not cycling guilt-free with my electric bicycle, because frankly I don't know where the lithium comes from, and I've seen some terrible pictures of where it may have come from. So I am wide open to this discussion, and I also note that in the desire to provide us with apparent green energy, the government is crashing ahead with producing pylons made in Germany and China and copper not made in this country to put pylons all over East Anglia, blighting the countryside, ripping up hedgerows, killing birds, frankly crushing the rural tourism economy in East Anglia in the event to do it. So I am with you with some of these concerns. I am not an expert either, though. You did kindly offer to provide some experts. It was a practicality challenge. We have to consult with every member around here in order to bring external guests in. I have to have a majority in favour of doing that. I wasn't able to get that simply because time ran away from us. It wasn't an attempt by anyone to not allow experts to come here. And it may be the case that as a consequence of tonight, a subsequent meeting happens in this forum in which we do have a bit more time to process who could come in and speak. I'm very open to hearing them. So there's no attempt to quash conversations from my end. Would you like to respond?
Yes, thank you for that. The thing is, you've spent 1.6 million on LED lights and ventilation and an air pump for one building. This council is heading towards bankruptcy. And when you think you don't even have enough money to keep the toilets open in Castle Park. So you must get your officers to put in real terms what the difference in temperature is, because on that building, you've got TBC, so you don't even know. You spent 1.6 million, and yes, 528,000 was a government grant, but where did that money come from? It's still taxpayer money, and you have no idea what you are doing or what difference that is going to make. You need evidence-based decisions, or this is misappropriation of public funds. So you really do need to scrutinise this properly, because it is utterly ridiculous.
Thank you. And I also further heard your point about the fact that when the unanimous vote was taken in full council in July 2019, a considerable number of those councillors are no longer with us. But the reality is that was 5 years ago, wasn't it? And so it might not be unreasonable to appraise and consider whether or not every single member of the chamber would sign up to that motion today. I have had some conversations, and I don't think that would be a unanimous vote today, but that's a conversation for another time. That's it from me, and that's it from you for the moment. We're going to make some progress. Thank you.
Thank you. But do get the experts in.
So we all went off for dinner, and during dinner I started to get text messages from someone who'd carried on watching the meeting. And to our great surprise, here's what happened after we left.
Chairman, I sit here perplexed this evening. I thought we had climate emergency, and this was our decision. It wasn't nothing to do with national politics. It was our decision that the council would be carbon neutral by 2030. And I looked up the definition of an emergency earlier on. It said the UN definition, an emergency is urgent, unexpected and usually dangerous situation that poses immediate risk to health, life, property, environment, and requires immediate action. I don't think what we're talking about this evening is an emergency at all. I think we were just carried away, and it may have been okay at the time, but perhaps we need to reconsider whether we're talking about emergencies or whether we're talking about sensible management action. And it may be disappointing for the scrutiny panel to suggest that to Cabinet, because I'm sure there are one or two activists who really believe we should have the super glue out. But I think for most of us, we've been convinced by two presentations this evening that setting a target of 2030 is perhaps not the best way. Climate change policy rather than an emergency, because I don't believe we've got an emergency. I don't believe we want one either.
Reiterate that I think, we all want in this room there to be clean air, we all want clean water, and we all want to be able to celebrate the beautiful landscape and countryside that we live in. I find the word solar farm a slight oxymoron. It's not a farm, and I'm not convinced about where solar equipment is made, how it's made, and the impact on the environment, etc. But I'll leave that. Scrutiny notes that the definition of the word emergency dictates that council is missing its own self-imposed objective unless significant capital budgets are identified to assist with the carbon reduction schemes. If Cabinet is unable to achieve this, it should consider reconsulting with full Council to ascertain if the will of Council is to consider this an emergency, as opposed to managing opportunities to reduce carbon and improve our environment and public realm with its existing budgetary framework and business plans. Sure. So that was my formal recommendation. Do I see all those in favour?
I see 4 in favour.
Okay, I see all those against, and I see abstentions. Okay, thank you.
Four in favour, 2 abstentions, so the motion's carried, the recommendation's carried.
Thank you very much. I think that was very constructive.
Now, I don't doubt for 1 minute the real reason they are questioning the emergency has only a tiny amount to do with us and more to do with the reality of the situation, that they are nowhere near their targets, like nowhere near. They're spending a fortune, getting nowhere, so basically reality has hit and they can see this isn't possible. Also, don't get your hopes up too high, because this has to be voted on by the Lib Dem Cabinet. But I suspect they would rather go bankrupt than admit net zero is nonsense. But I'm happy to be proved wrong on that. Now, interestingly, during my speech, I was getting a little bit of heckling from the cheap seats behind. There were some environmentalists who'd come to speak about the Middlewick Ranges. And as I'd finished my speech, one of them very loudly informed me, "You're speaking out your backside." Well, I'd certainly be in the right place for that. But anyway, that aside, what that shows me is they are missing the fact that one of my main drivers for this is to save the environment. So what I've taken from that delightful feedback is that I don't think most people realise the extent of how much of our countryside we're going to lose to renewables. Now, the government have just brought out a NESO report, which Paul Burgess has done an excellent job on covering. I'll link to his videos below, and he's also interviewed Ralph Ellis on it as well. So those videos are well worth a watch. So as good as those videos are, they're going to be too long for most people. So we need to distill the most important information into memes that can be easily shareable. So I think we need to take the data that Paul and Ralph have produced from the NESO report and get it on a graphic that shows how much, colouring in black, to scale, how much of our land we will lose to renewables if the NESO report is followed to the letter, how much that will cost, and also the difference to temperature that will make if we can find enough decimal places. Then we need to do another graphic, or maybe part of the same graphic, that shows the reality of actually how much battery storage you would need. For example, Paul Burgess often talks about the 9 days where there was no sun and no wind, and you would need, I think he said, 7,200 gigawatt hours of electricity. And the government are putting forward storage solutions that come to about 99 gigawatts. So that's what, a few minutes, few hours at most. So we need someone to make a graphic showing just how ridiculous this is and that net zero will never work. So I think if the environmentalists can see just how much land we're going to use, and maybe on the same graphic put how many millions of tons of toxic waste we're going to be lumbered with in 20 years' time and how difficult it is to recycle, the costs of this are just phenomenal. It's not going to produce enough energy, and the NESO report does basically say you're going to have to ration energy, and the government calculations haven't allowed for the increase when they're trying to electrify everything. They're only covering, or trying to cover, our electricity usage now. So the whole thing is completely and utterly insane. Now, a lot of people are so fearful over climate change that they would happily cover every square inch of our farmland and countryside in solar and wind farms, even though it's not going to produce the amount of energy we need. So at the same time, we need to do more education on CO2 and talk about the environmental benefits of that, you'll need less chemical fertilisers because the CO2 is causing, I think it's about a 30% increase in crop yields, and that we're beginning to regreen the deserts. There needs to be more education on how beneficial warmer temperatures are, and they're not detrimental. I don't think enough people realise that in the Holocene maximum, temperatures were 5 degrees warmer than they are now, and the polar regions were fine. In Antarctica, for example, The ice sheet is 2 kilometres deep. I mean, that's going to take more than 1.5 degrees centigrade to melt it. So a lot more needs to be done on all forms of education. Now, talking of education, the very wonderful CO2 Coalition are looking to start up a UK version. Now, if you have the time available to help with that, I will put a link in the description of a Slack group, which is an online forum that you can sign up to, and it's free to use, and you can come and join this group and help us get the UK version off the ground, because that feedback I got of "you're talking out of your backside," it just shows how much more education is needed. And it's a double whammy of showing them net zero can never work, because even in the NESO report, it shows you've got to have the gas power stations online running at a low level as backup. You can't just switch off a power station. It can take days to get them going again. So you're always constantly burning gas just to keep the power stations ticking over for when the renewables fail. And they do fail quite regularly, and sometimes for longer than 9 days. So we first went to the council in January 2023, so it's taken us nearly 2 years to get this far making inroads. It's like trying to fell a dead tree with a penknife. You chip away and you chip away and you chip away, but eventually the weight of it will take this down. Because when truth is first spoken, you get that angry reaction and the ridicule. Eventually, the truth becomes self-evident, and then after that, it is accepted. Now, it is self-evident right now for those that have the eyes to see, for those that look at what the government proposes compared to what our energy needs are, compared to the cost of it all. But there are so many people that won't even look at that data, so that's why it is critical, all hands on deck, to do the education. Because if people can see how impossible net zero is, they may be more open to looking at alternatives. If we can just get them past the CO2 being bad, we need to disconnect CO2 from proper pollution. I was in London last week meeting up with some climate experts, and a couple of them were telling me about synthetic fuels, and they were saying that the air coming out the exhaust pipe is actually cleaner than the air going into the engine with these synthetic fuels. But of course, they take a lot of electricity to generate, so we need cheap electricity, and there is hydrogen involved. Now, I haven't researched this myself, so there's bound to be some other snags to it, other than the fact it is very expensive. But if it was mass produced, I'm told it could come down to €2 a litre, and we could have even cleaner air than we do now. So that could be a real alternative to fossil fuels. But people have got to get over CO2 being a pollutant when it's not. It is plant food. So I'm coming to the end of my time with Council Watch. I'll do up till the end of November, then others will be taking over. But in reality, the people that are willing to take over from me don't have the tech expertise with video editing. So the way forward really is, I think we need to hire a media manager, because we've got 80 videos and only 1 or 2 of them have gone viral. There are so many good clips of the longer videos and made shorter and then posted on social media, as well as new videos being created. We need to hire someone for that. So we need funding. If every one of our 10,000 subscribers donated just £1 or 2 a month, we would have enough money to hire people full time. And actually, there are council watches everywhere, up and down the country, that we could also make the videos for. And then we could have this same person do social media for all the council watchers that are up and down the country. That is what needs to happen, but we can't do it without the funding. I've been putting in between 30 and 50 hours every week now for 18 months. And, you know, with my family commitments as well, there just isn't time to earn a living on top of that. So financially, I have to stop now. There is no question. But also, my ability to communicate with the councillors isn't there anymore because I've pissed them off too much with my videos. So we need new people, new faces to come in and pass the baton to, because they're not listening to me, Karina and Cheryl anymore. So Karina and Cheryl are quite happy to go in and just bend their ear over the things they feel are wrong. But for me, it was always about communication. It was always about reaching people. And I know my time is over now with that, because probably of too much sarcasm in my videos, but I needed the sarcasm just to get through them. So I can't do it any longer, and also I don't want to do it any longer. You reach the point where, you know, my ability to be polite now and not sarcastic, I can't get through a single speech without the sarcasm coming out. So my ability to do this is very compromised, and the audience aren't listening. So I need to step aside and new people need to come in. And we could do with some more men coming in, because there's a wonderful synergy when you've got strong male energy and strong female energy coming together. We notice that whenever we work with the peacekeepers. There's something magical about that mixture of strong male, strong female coming together, stepping up, and that is what we need. So Council Watch does need to continue. It's doing vital work. So we need enough money coming in every month to hire someone to do the social media and create the videos. And also we could do with enough money to do leafleting every month, because YouTube are well and truly throttling the account. Our subscribers keep getting unsubscribed by YouTube, so the account just does not grow. So if we could get leaflets, we can leaflet everyone in Colchester. So this is what needs to happen, but you guys need to make it happen. I can't do it anymore. Financially, this has been absolutely crippling. So my time is done. There are others willing to take over, but they need that technical expertise. So it's down to you guys now to help and fund this and find people to step forward and come in and do the council speeches. We can help write them. We just need you to come in and do them, because it is making a difference. And if enough of us chip away at it, we are making progress, although it is painfully slow, admittedly, but we are getting there. Now, in the next episode, I hope to do a roundup. There's so many council watches started up, and I just haven't had a chance to do a video to show them all to you. And also, people want updates on Sudbury. Oh, and we've got a fantastic clip of the latest from Deanbridge Council. Would you believe there's a worse chair than our favourite Rosie? Well, there is. You won't believe the next clip we've got coming up for you. So, stay tuned. Until next time, take care. Thank you.